Welcome to chapter 13 of the book of Revelation. We continue now with the dragon having been mentioned in the last chapter. We ended with the dragon. In the chapter 13, it begins with basically two new entities, and that would be the wild beast from the sea and the wild beast from the land. Before we go through the whole chapter, I think I'll just summarize who these are so when we go into it, get an idea what they are. The wild beast, it mentions that from the sea, differs from the dragon. The dragon has 10 horns, so does the wild beast from the sea, and the dragon has 7 heads, and so does the wild beast from the sea. But we're told with the wild beast from the sea that the name of blasphemy is upon them, and one of the heads is slain to death, but he was wounded, cured of his wound. But the difference here, and it's interesting, and I can't tell you why, the dragon has 10 horns. It has 10 diadems, where there's only 7 diadems for the wild beast. And the diadems generally go on the heads. There's only 7 heads in the dragon, but he has 10 horns. So the horns and the heads are not the same. There's a difference between them. It could be nations and the rulers of the nations. And the diadems would be ones that are victorious. Generally, it was had to do with the victor's wreath. We're not told a lot about diadems. The only other place it's mentioned is in Esther, where she wore a diadem. The wild beast of the sea was like to leopards and a bear and a lion. All of these things were mentioned in the book of Daniel. He was given power, throne, and authority from the dragon. So they are not the same. The wild beast is not the dragon. The dragon is Satan, the ancient serpent, the devil. And the wild beast is something different. What? I don't know. I guess we'll have to wait, or I'm not going to wait to find out, but hopefully I'll not find out until after it's all over. But it's coming, or he's coming. It's coming. There's a wonder in all the earth after the wild beast. The wild beast is given a mouth speaking great things and blasphemy. And it has authority to make war 42 months. And again, the 3.5-year period. The wild beast blasphemed against God, his name, and his tent, and the ones encamping in the heaven. And he was given to make war then with the holy ones and overcame them. And he was also given authority over every tribe, language, and nation. So this entity was very powerful, a world type of ruler over all the tribes, languages, and nations. And then it goes in to people on the earth in verse 4, and then verses 8 to 10. We'll go through that and point that out when we get to it. And the other major entity is the wild beast from the earth. And he has 2 horns as a lamb, not all the horns that the other ones had. And he spoke as a dragon, so he apparently looks like a mild, meek person maybe, but yet when he spoke as a dragon. And he executes, it says, the authority of the first beast. So he gets his authority from this beast in the sea. And he causes ones to do this obeisance to the first beast. So the people on the earth to do obeisance, get down on the ground and bow to him. And the wild beast from the earth works great signs that fire would come down from out of heavens. I don't know how he does that. If it's some type of a weapon. He misleads the ones of mine. It mentions in 12:10, which is comes from the voice from heaven, being the person that's speaking, that says mine. And he causes the ones on earth to make an image to the first wild beast. So an image is an icon. The Greek word is icon. We have the word icon. To me, it might have something to do with the computer, internet, because it uses that word. It's interesting. It didn't really appear till recently in usage. Well, except for iconology, iconology in the Orthodox Church of having pictures on the walls and bas reliefs and so forth. And it says that the ones who don't do obeisance to the image, they're to be killed. And this is sort of the same as what happened with Daniel, the image that was set up on the plain of, Shinar? And if they didn't do obeisance, they would be killed. And then there was to be an imprint on the right hand and the forehead of all that they can buy or they sell. Or they can sell. Without the imprint, they can't. So this imprint, and this is a control of the economy of the world. And the rest we'll get into as we go through. So we'll begin now in verse 1. And I stood upon the sand of the sea, and again, all these rose-colored entities in our book, entities of the book of Revelation. And I saw from out of the sea a wild beast ascending, having 10 horns and 7 heads, and upon his horns 10 diadems, and upon his heads a name of blasphemy. Blasphemias is a transliteration. So coming out of the sea, and the abyss is another word for the sea. The deep is also another word for the ocean, water, sea, the abyss, the deep. And the wild beast which I saw was likened to a leopard, and his feet as a bear, and his mouth as a lion, and his mouth of a lion. So he was powerful, had fast, the bear, the feet, powerful feet, moving, could trample, and the mouth speaking great things. So this is what his attributes are. And the dragon gave to him the dragon's power and his throne and great authority. So this beast is now given power by Satan, because we know the dragon is Satan. So Satan is behind this whole thing going on, and this wild beast who appears, who I'm sure the people will see him once it happens, will know who he is. And one from out of his heads was as having been slain to death, and the wound of his death was cured. So the wild beast has these 7 heads, and so one of the 7 is going to be killed, but yet, like Jesus, is somehow it's going to be resurrected, or in a false way, I'm not sure. And there was wonder in all the earth after the wild beast. So they saw things are going on, and the people are taking notice, and there's a wonder. It's not like that. Doesn't say they're upset or anything. They're just, this is probably at the beginning. They're trying to figure out what's going on with this being once he takes this power. And they did obeisance to the dragon, giving the authority to the wild beast. And they did obeisance to the wild beast, saying, so here now they're giving obeisance to Satan, who gives the authority to the wild beast. Now, if they did it directly to the dragon of some sort, or they do it by giving it to the wild beast, therefore they're giving obeisance to the dragon, I'm not sure. But they were saying, who is likened to the wild beast, and who is mighty to wage war with him? So he's a Pantocrator, almighty on the earth, earthly Pantocrator, Pantocrat. And a mouth was given to him, that is that wild beast, speaking great things and blasphemy. So he's not saying anything good about God or Jesus or the followers or the holy ones, but yet he is blaspheming, but yet he is saying great things and giving himself all kinds of power. Well, I could fit a lot of rulers that have come along, so I suppose we'll have to wait and see. And authority was given to him to make war for 42 months. 3.5 years. Again, we see this 3.5 year period. So he is going to be making war in this period. And he opened his mouth for blasphemy against God, to blaspheme his name and his tent. So it doesn't say it's a tent. That's interesting. It doesn't have his temple or a building, but it's a tent. And the ones encamping in the heaven, he's blaspheming against them. And was given to him to make war with the holy ones and to overcome them. Well, that's a powerful thing there. God is allowing him this power to make war with the holy ones, and you'd think, well, the holy ones should come out ahead. But they're not. He's allowed to overcome the holy ones. And this would be a terrible time to be if you're a holy one, if you're loving the Lord and you found out, and you're going to go through this time called the tribulation or the great conflict. And it's best not to go through it. I believe that the Lord will come, as he mentions in chapter 24 of the book of Matthew, and take the ones of his body, which are the believers that are part of his members of his body, and they will not suffer the wrath. Here the wrath is being poured out on the world, but yet people can still apparently believe. But if they are overcome, and was given to him authority over every tribe, language, and nation. So he has this worldly power. And they did obeisance to him, all the ones dwelling upon the earth, whose name has not been written in the book of the life of the Lamb. So the ones whose name has been taken out of the life of the Lamb are now doing obeisance to him, and they're dwelling on the earth, having been slain from the founding of the world. So the holy ones the Lamb being slain from the founding of the world. So this was a plan of God from the beginning. Jesus coming and dying for us, a propitiation for the sins. And here it says he was slain from the founding of the world. If anyone has an ear, hear. So listen to these things. If anyone has captivity, into captivity he goes. If anyone kills with a sword, it is a must for him to be killed by a sword. Here is the endurance and the belief of the holy ones. So basically the endurance in going through this, if you're killed, the people that do not take the mark will be killed, and the other ones will be able to stay and buy and sell things. It's going to be very difficult for the holy ones. It's best to accept Jesus now in this time of grace, the time of favor, where God is allowing us to be with him without the law and without necessarily having to go through all these terrible times of the wrath. Not that we don't go through terrible times, but I don't think it's going to be compared to what's going to happen at the end of time. Now, the next wild beast appears, and it says, "And I saw another wild beast ascending from out of the earth." So John is there, and now he's seeing coming from out of the earth. I don't know how he came out of the earth, but he did, and he had 2 horns likened to a lamb, and spoke as a dragon. So he was, like I mentioned, a soft person that you wouldn't think could be dangerous or horrible or do anything, but yet his speaking, he spoke as a dragon with a lot of authority and meanness, whatever it would be. And he executes all the authority of the first wild beast before him. Now, I don't think it means before him, Enopian, the one that was before him, not in front of him. I don't believe. And caused the earth and the ones dwelling in it that they should do obeisance to the first wild beast, of which was cured the wound of his death. So apparently the one of those of the heads is going to take rule, and that would be of this first wild beast, and that would be he was wounded of death and he was cured. So they'll know when they see that happen. And he works great signs and fire from out of the heaven, that from out of the heaven it should come down upon the earth before men. So this second wild beast has a power to bring this fire from heaven, some type of a military or a space object, probably, I'm not sure. But anyway, he's able to, a sign is like a miracle. The signs were always being asked for by the Jews. They wanted to see the signs. And here they're seeing signs. They're going to see signs. And they're going to be great signs. And maybe because they see these great signs, they'll think that this is divine. And he misleads the ones of mind dwelling upon the earth by the signs which were given him to do before the wild beast, the first wild beast. So he's able to do all these signs. He's the one doing more of the action, the second wild beast, than the first. Saying to the ones dwelling upon the earth to make an image, an icona, an icon to the wild beast, which had the wound of the sword and lived. So this first wild beast has some type of an image, and whatever it is being made, and people are to do obeisance to it. And was given to him breath to give to the image of the wild beast. Or sort of reminds me of virtual reality, where a robot today in 2017, those are both would be the number one choices if you were going to have an image, would give it breath and have it like a person. That also the image of the wild beast should speak and should cause as many as would not do obeisance to the image of the first wild beast, that they should be killed. So if you're not doing obeisance in the world, you'll be killed. Sounds like a one world government that many people are trying to bring about. And he causes all, the small and the great, the rich and the poor, and the free and the bondman, that there should be given to them a haragma upon their hieros, the right hand. So now you'll know when you have to be given a imprint, tattoo of some sort, or some type of a chip. I'm not sure what it would be, a brand on your right hand or upon their foreheads. And that no one should be able to buy or sell except the one having the imprint or the name of the wild beast or the number of his name. So you'll be able to know. Now it mentions that the believers, the holy ones, will have a mark also, so that when the wrath is poured out, they will not be injured. The 144,000, I mentioned that earlier in the last couple of chapters. But here, now we have the imprint of the people, and there'll probably be most people that want to buy and sell things and live and not go through all the terrible time that they think. So they'll take this mark. And then we've given this interesting verse. Here is wisdom. Okay? You have to be wise. The one having the mind, siphisato, tally the arithmon of the wild beast. For it is a arithmos of a man, and the arithmos is, and it has these three letters. Well, now, I think the King James has the one having the mind count the number of the beast, but count is not the word. It's not a true translation. To count would be arithmeo, where like we get this arithmon number, and counting would be arithmeo, to count. But here it's physisato, it's to tally. And a Greek person was going through this with me years ago, and I mentioned count, and they said, well, that's not count. And I said, well, what is it? And because I was reading the Greek, and then I was translating it. And they said, well, that's a vote, or to count a vote. And I went, wow, it's not. And they said, no, to count would be arithmeo. So this is something you're tallying. What are you tallying? The Cephos, the little small stone. Jesus called Peter Cephos. He's a little stone, a little rock. He wasn't the lithos, the giant stone that he made the church on, but Peter was just a small little stone. And they used these Cephos, these little stones, to cast lots when they voted for somebody. And so somehow this has got something to do with a vote. The one having mine, tally the vote, the number of the wild beast. I was in Brazil during the election there, and I got out of the car of the city that I went to, Lorena, and all of a sudden there's all these people going down the street yelling, cinco, 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 sink, sink, sink. And it was this kind of a chant, and there was 20 or 30 people in trucks with bullhorns and going through, and then they were throwing out these leaflets, pamphlets, little pamphlets about 6 by 3, and on there they'd have a number. And cinco, was that 10, would be whatever that number would be, 10. Somebody else was running, could have been 632. They would be going through, and they would be going, whatever it was in Portuguese, 632, vote for 632, 632 is our man, vote for 632, and then another one would be 445, so forth. And this is how they voted there, and I don't know, maybe they do that in other countries, and maybe that's what this is going to be, something like that. It's a number of the man. For it is a number of a man, and his number is, now we have, here it is. Now, this is a he, xi, and a sigma, final S. The Greek alphabet is alphanumeric. All the letters of the alphabet have numerical equivalents, sort of like a Latin. Latin doesn't have as many. They have an alphabet that's way bigger, but they have like 12, I think, letters have numeric equivalents. And Hebrew also does the same. So it would be like if you saw V, or X, which is a 10, and a V is a 5, and 1 is an I. So XVI, you would know it was a 10 and a 5 and a 1. So it would be 10, 15, 16. But here, it's an X is 600, Xi is 60, and sigma is a 6. So it's actually these three letters. So now, this one movie, The Omen, I think it was, made the looking for the Antichrist on this head and looking for 666. Everybody's looking for 666. It's not 666. It's 660 and 6. Now, some Bibles, English Bibles, spell it out. S-I-X, H-U-N-D-R-E-D. And then S-I-X-T-Y, and then S-I-X. For words. In the Greek, 600 would have one word for that, and some Greek Bibles have that. For 600 is spelled out instead of the number, a letter. And then 60, which would be another Greek letter, and 6, hex, would be another word, rather. So this is the number. It does tally 666, but I prefer to have it more accurate where you can see the difference. And now in the next chapter, we're going to be going into, again, the 144,000 who had mentioned earlier from the 12 tribes, and mentioned 12,000 from each tribe, and gave their names and everything. And we'll go through all of this in chapter 14, book of Revelation, and I hope you'll join us in this next chapter, and God bless.